What's up, guys? I'm BTC. There'll be plenty of horsing around with the Weapon Master from Overwatch, Marcus. I really enjoy making hero concepts for Overwatch, and Marcus is definitely one of my favorites. Quite often when I make these, people ask how would it affect the current meta, because the first one I made, Ares, was specifically designed to counter goats, but since then I stopped making characters that counter a specific meta, and instead focus on making things that are interesting, unique, and would actually functionally work within the game of Overwatch, if Blizzard ever decided to actually use one of them. Hashtag Blizzard hired BTC. Marcus, for example, was designed about 6 months ago, way before Double Barrier was a thing, but to answer the question that I know people are going to ask, how would this affect the meta with Double Barrier, it would be kind of a mixed effect. Some of the stuff from the character might work, other stuff won't. You'll see what I'm talking about when we go through the abilities. Now, I do want to give a quick shout out to X-SEIDE-T, who is the artist that has been helping me with the artwork for my hero concepts. If you'd like to see more of his work, then there'll be a link for him down below. In addition to that, there'll be a playlist with all of my other hero concepts, and you can check out those. And also, if you would like to discuss your hero concepts or any of the ones that I've made, I have some channels set up in my Discord server, so feel free to join up and say hi. Lastly, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like and shared it wherever you can, because it helps a lot. And now, let me introduce you to Marcus. For the hero creation method, there are 3 different ones that I use, and with Marcus, it is to design the hero with specific abilities to fit a need within the game, and that need is a long-range character that is capable of countering things like Hanzo and Widow. So the goals for Marcus was to create a unique sniper, something that doesn't overlap too much with Widow or Hanzo. And the second thing is I really wanted to include a railgun in the character design, because that is something that you see in a whole bunch of different games, and Blizzard has actually talked about it a little bit, how they would like to use it in Overwatch, but they're not quite sure how to implement it into the game. And then the third thing is, of course, the main part of this, which is it must be a viable counter to Widow and also to Hanzo. Growing up down in the Lone Star state of Texas, Marcus spent his childhood riding horses and shooting bottles and cans off of the fence down near the edge of his family's ranch. When the Omnic Crisis began, like so many others, he answered the call. While there wasn't much need for a horseman in Overwatch, there was a strong need for his other talents. Marcus was incredibly proficient with nearly any kind of weapon that launched a projectile. His fellow agents would often say that if it had a trigger, then Marcus could fix it and fire it. He quickly rose through the ranks and became one of Overwatch's premier weapon masters, although he steered clear of anything that was driven by artificial intelligence. Marcus believed that the decision-making needed to be in the hands of the person holding the weapon and not the weapon itself. For his own equipment, Marcus had anything but standard issue. Ranger and Rosie were both heavily modified, one-of-a-kind weapons, built to the exact specifications that Marcus desired. While Ranger was more general use, Rosie was something special. She was a railgun and possibly the single most powerful single-man operated weapon in the world. When Overwatch was finally shut down, Marcus found himself without a job. While he was approached by several major organizations like Helix and Vishkar, he wasn't particularly interested in working for any of them. Instead, Marcus went back home to his ranch in Texas and took up ranching and horses like his family had been doing for generations. Although Marcus loved his ranch and tending the horses, life got a little dull and repetitive as time went on. So when a message came in from Winston recalling all Overwatch agents, Marcus decided to pull himself out of retirement, as well as pulling Rosie out of storage. Marcus is a long-range DPS with a playstyle similar to Widow, but with some notable differences, and because of this, he has a primary attack that has a scoped-in view, and this is going to work the exact same way that it does with Widow and Ana, where you have to hold right-click. So his primary attack, the weapon is called Ranger, the type is hit scan, damage is 80, it can critical. The critical bonus is 2.5 times, there is no fall off, the rate of fire is 1 per 0.85 seconds, spread angle is 0, ammo is 12, reload time is 1.5 seconds, and the move speed has a penalty of negative 65%. Going back to the critical bonus, the reason why it is 2.5 instead of the standard 2 is because that is the same that Widow has for her scoped critical hits. It's 2.5, and I felt that it was important to retain that consistency among the different characters that have that scoped in attack that can actually critical, because Ana can't crit. Now, the reason for this is also because with that, it means that he can do exactly 200 damage with a scoped critical, which means that he can effectively counter Widow, because when you look at other hit scan like Ashe and McCree and Soldier, it takes them multiple hits in order to take out the enemy Widow, whereas she only needs one. So in order to be a strong, effective counter to Widow at long range, it was important for Marcus to have that one-hit capability. I want to emphasize that there are some important differences between the attacks of Marcus and Widow. Essentially, it breaks down as this. Marcus has more ammo and also a faster rate of attack, so it's less punishing when you miss. But while he can take out that 200 hit point target with a critical, overall his damage versus tanks is going to be less because he doesn't have the ability to do those full power charge shots, which does 120 damage, or, you know, even more with a critical. His normal attacks are only 80 damage per. So the way Marcus works is if you have a high accuracy, you're going to be able to land those criticals very quickly and do a good amount of damage. But if your accuracy isn't all that great and you're just hitting normal hits, then you're going to end up doing less damage, but it's also, again, less punishing when you miss. So there's kind of a trade-off in all different directions for how Marcus works. Moving on to Ranger, when it's just a normal attack, this is when you're not zoomed in, you will be using not the normal barrel, but instead a modified section underneath it, which is a type shotgun projectile. Damage is 30 times 3, because it fires out 3 of them at the same time. It can critical. The fall-off range is from 10 meters to 20 meters. The rate of fire is 1 per 0.7 seconds. Spread angle is 4.5. Projectile speed is 110 meters per second. Ammo is 12, just like normal, but this consumes 3 per attack, and the reload time is 1.5 seconds. Because Marcus is so strong at medium and long range, for the sake of balance, it was important that his close range attack be fairly weak, yet I didn't want to make it completely worthless. Also, this is going in a very different direction than what Widowmaker has. So you can see here that there are 3 that go out, and if the enemy is very close, then you're likely going to hit with all 3, but as you move further away, those are going to also spread out to the left, to the right, and up. So this is not going to be very effective at long range at all. You're not going to be able to use this to just try to hit enemies at distance. It's not really going to work. This is primarily to defend yourself when someone like a Winston or a Diva tries to get in close and take you out. I also wanted to show you how strong this was compared to other similar attacks, and as you can see, it is definitely a good deal weaker than even Torbjorn, so there's no worry about Marcus just running in and trying to do damage with this normal attack and being able to replace someone like a Reaper or Roadhog. It's just not going to happen. His first ability is called Ultrasonic Ping. The type is Vision. Range is map-wide. Duration is 1.5 seconds. Cooldown is 12 seconds, and the effect is that it grants vision of enemies. At first glance, you might think this is very similar in function to what Hanzo and Widowmaker has, but it is definitely not. Their abilities allow you to see enemies through the walls and track them while you can see them, so that the moment they pop out, you can attack them. But with Marcus's Ultrasonic Ping, you can't do that. Because the duration is so short, it just gives you a glimpse at where the enemies are currently positioned. So this is more about scouting the enemies and finding out where they are, as opposed to tracking them through the walls. This is particularly effective when Marcus is going up against a Hanzo or a Widow and you don't know where they are, because there are a bunch of maps where they could be positioned in any number of places. Marcus can activate this ability and he will immediately know exactly where that enemy Hanzo or that Widow is perched up at, and then you can go and try to take them out in that way. This ability is also good for trying to target your enemies when you want to use your ultimate, but we'll get to that in just a minute. His second ability is the Anti-Grav. The type is crowd control, damage is none, delay is 1 second, cooldown is 12 seconds, area of effect is 4 meters. The effect is that Marcus and enemies will be thrown 10 meters up into the air. Marcus has full control when this happens. You can move in any direction, and enemies will regain control at the peak height after being thrown up into the air. This ability serves 3 different functions for Marcus. The first is this is how he can obtain high ground. You can toss this onto the ground, and after a 1 second delay, it will launch Marcus up into the air quite a bit, and this allows you to get into positions where you can better attack the enemy. The second purpose is whenever he is being attacked, if a Winston or someone dives onto you, you can hit them with this, and it will launch them into the air, allowing you to get away, or you can use it on yourself to boost you up onto high ground to escape certain other characters. And the third use of this ability is that you can throw it towards the enemy and it will throw them up into the air, allowing you to line up an attack on them and hopefully get a critical. But it's important to note that if you use it in this way, then you will have it on cooldown and you won't be able to use it defensively when you need to. But I do like giving the player the option to use it in either of those capacities. Next up is Marcus's ultimate, which is called Rosie. The voice line for this, which I would imagine would be said in a very Texan accent, would be, "Rosie, come on, old girl." The type is projectile, damage is 350, it cannot critical, the range is infinite, spread angle is 0, projectile speed is 180 meters per second, cast time is 1 second, duration is 3 seconds, move speed, there is a 50% penalty, charge requirement is 1500, and the effect is that the attack passes through all objects and players. This includes barriers and walls. Although this attack can be absorbed by Defense Matrix, Kinetic Grasp, and it can be deflected by Genji, but everything else, it will go right through it. When Rosie is not being used, she's carried on Marcus's back. There are 2 grips on the top near his shoulders. He can grab both of those and he pulls Rosie up and over his shoulders, and it's still mounted onto his shoulders, and it will be out in front of him. Then it will kind of transform and extend until it's in its full form. That is the cast time of the ultimate. It's that kind of pulling it up over his shoulders and getting it into the correct position. You then have 3 seconds to aim wherever you want. You can press the attack button or the ultimate button again to immediately attack, or after the 3-second duration is up, it will automatically attack on its own. Because this is such a powerful attack, it does need some limitations, and that comes in the form of the hitbox for the attack. So unlike Hanzo's Dragon, which is just absolutely gigantic, this attack for Rosie is fairly small, which means if you're at a great distance away from all of the enemies, the likelihood that you're going to hit more than one is pretty low. There's a decent chance you're going to hit at least one enemy, but they would have to be lined up or really bunched up together in order for you to hit more than one at a time. Also, if you're on high ground, it also kind of changes how it works, because when you're on high ground, you're going to be angling down, which means it's even less likely that you're going to hit multiple targets. I tried to create this ultimate to be kind of the long-range version of what Tracer has, and this is something that Blizzard has talked about. They don't want something that just instantly wins the entire fight for you. They want something that is able to swing it in your favor, but not just outright win it. And that's what Tracer's ult does, and that is what Rosie does as well. Now, for Marcus, if you want to get the most advantage from your ultimate, then it means that you should probably drop off of high ground, because then you don't have to worry about that downward angle problem. Instead, you can try to line up multiple enemies. But I have a feeling that as soon as the enemies hear you activate this ability, they're going to immediately scatter in all directions, so that at most you can only hit one of them at a time. But I do like this, just like with the anti-grav thing, giving the player the option to stay on the high ground to probably get a little bit better of a chance on one target versus dropping to the low ground and potentially getting the chance to hit multiple targets. So again, it's up to the player to make that decision, and I think the more you give the player the option to make these kinds of choices, the better the characters tend to be. Marcus's personality would be very friendly, outgoing, and fun to be around, Also, he has a lot of pride in the Lone Star State. You'll notice on his armor up on the chest there, it does have that star, the Lone Star of Texas. So I think I answered a lot of the questions that you guys might have had for the character, because I try to do that as I'm giving the hero concept. I try to think of possible questions that you guys might have, like, you know, would his ultimate be caught by Defense Matrix? I try to answer those things as I'm doing the hero concept. But if there is anything else that you guys would like to know, please let me know down in the comment section below. I don't think I'm going to do a follow-up video for this. I'm just going to answer your questions down below. And if you're new to the channel, Marcus is just the latest in a long line of really awesome hero concepts. For Vidal, I even did a full animated comic for that character, which came out really awesome. So again, the playlist for all the hero concepts and that comic are in the description of this video. And once more, I would really appreciate it if you dropped a like and shared the video, because YouTube has been changing a lot of stuff and it helps a lot. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.